Well, actor Kalki Koechlin has been very outspoken on violence against women, and now she's fighting for another important cause, child sexual abuse. Kalki was part of the first ever conference today on child sexual abuse organized by actor Rahul Bose's NGO, where she has also spoken about her own abuse for the very first time. I spoke to Kalki earlier this evening.
It's not important. The important is
Kalki, thank you so much for joining us on the program this evening. You've broken your silence on child abuse and your own experience. What is it that you can share with us? I actually don't ever remember reading about this or hearing about this in your case before.
Well, Nidhi, for me, it's really, although this is an important issue and I wanted to talk about it, it's not about giving you, my history as a person who has gone through sexual abuse. It's just to put forward the idea that so many of us have gone through it, and most of the people that I know that I'm close to, especially close friends of mine who are women, have gone through some form of CSA, of child sexual abuse. So it's just so out there. There's so much of it that I think it's not something that should be ignored. Right now, I think 53% is of the nation is going through CSA. That's half the country, more than half the country, and that's only the official statistics. So I think there's a lot more happening, because we know how in a lot of families we brush under the carpet, and because of social cultural pressure, we don't talk about these things. So for me, it was just important to mention that. But I don't think a public platform is necessarily the only way to talk about CSA. I think sometimes it's important to speak out, break the silence. Other times it's also important to have a place to go to where you can trust somebody, whether that be a psychiatrist or a family member or a social setup, an organization which helps you talk about these things, or your school or your teacher. The problem is we don't have many of these trusted areas to go to a person. And the problem with talking about it publicly, I also think there's a danger that it just becomes a shocking headline. Somebody who's gone through CSA is not a headline. That's a reality that they have lived with for all of their life. So it has to go much deeper than that, and there has to be other forms of expressing it and talking about it. And of course, there has to be government support and laws implemented.
Right. But Kalki, many Indian celebrities don't talk about these things at all, and in a sense what you're doing is something new and bold by even though you're not giving out any of the details, you actually may encourage a lot of other people to come forward and speak up about these issues.
Absolutely, and I don't think it's just celebrities. I mean, we always expect celebrities to be the ones who talk, but none of us talk about these issues. Whether, I know a lot of people who are not in the film industry who don't feel that they can talk about it. So definitely, I think it's important to put out my experience, just if it helps somebody or makes them feel confident to talk about it. But it goes beyond that, as I said. I think, it's not so important just to publicize it, but more to deal with it, to really search into it, and to not make it a taboo. I think that's the highest problem, that it's a mentality that we have, that anything to do with sexual abuse is taboo. So children, just feel that they've done something wrong, or they feel that this fear of what their parents will think, or how they will be judged by anybody around them. And that taboo needs to go away, and I think that comes from a serious re-looking at sexual education in schools and in home environments. Right now when you look at sexual education, it's like a biology subject. It's a very removed subject from the reality of it. We see diagrams, and it's very cut off from the social side of it. Whereas I think the social aspect of sexuality is as important. It should be a subject as serious as maths or science,
Well, Kalki, as you say, it is a huge issue, and I've noticed that in India we've talked a lot more about sexual violence against women, in particular after the December 16th gang rape that took place in India. So do you also get a sense, though, that maybe now people are a little more willing to talk about these issues, or because in the case of child sexual abuse, it generally largely involves families, it makes it that much more difficult?
It is, of course, it's extremely difficult to talk about it because I think 50% of the cases that are reported, it is someone that is known or one of the family members themselves who has, abused a child. So I think that makes it so difficult because, once you come out with it, you have to confront that person at some point, and that is pretty much reliving the whole pain of it again, and it's tiring and exhausting and traumatic for a person who's been abused to relive the experience over and over with the psychiatrist or with the abuser themselves or with family members. So it's a very, very sensitive and difficult subject to tackle, but not only do we need to tackle it, I feel, once somebody has been abused, because of course there's all that comes with it, the sensitivity of treating a child who's gone through that, giving them a comfortable space where they can feel like they can talk about it and stuff. But also before anything like that happens, the question I want to raise is, why are people doing this? I mean, why is somebody that you are close to, a family member, abusing in the first place? I think there is a social question there. Of repression, of not being, able to express things, and I think it's really important that we address that as well, like an awareness that certain things are talked about. An example is basically Rahul earlier said today, which was I think a very good analogy, that like a child, if he has a broken arm, should go up to his parents and go, I have a broken arm. He should be able to say, I have been abused today.
Or this
happened to me. And say it without that taboo. So removing that taboo will come from sexual education becoming a social responsibility.
Right. Kalki, my final question is what you went through, the abuse that you faced as a child, did that change you and make you the kind of person that you eventually became?
I mean, I would say every experience you go through shapes you as a person. So obviously, yes, it has. It took me many years to even come and talk about it. I think it's, every experience that we have definitely shapes us. It's also how you choose to go ahead with it and what you choose to do with it. For me, my writing and my art and my acting is therapeutic. It's my way of releasing things out, of expressing things. I think everybody has different outlets, but as long as there are those places where you can do that, not everybody has the privilege to talk about it openly.
Well, Kalki, thank you very much for speaking to us, though, on this tonight on a very important issue, and more power to you for having the courage to speak out. And that's it on the show tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow night. We're live from Kolkata as we bring you perspective on the general elections and the national picture as it is today from the politicians of Kolkata. See you tomorrow. Bye.